All right, we're going to go ahead and get our program started. So if you haven't had a chance to grab a seat, feel free to do so now. Awesome, awesome. All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the National Civil Rights Museum. My name is Arlinda Fair Cathy, and I serve as the Director of Engagement, here at the museum. The National Civil Rights Museum, located at the Lorraine Motel, honors and preserves the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We chronicled the American Civil Rights Movement and to tell the story of the ongoing struggle for human rights. We educate and serve as a catalyst to inspire action to create positive social change. As part of our outreach, education, and engagement, the museum hosts the Catalyst for Change series featuring authors, celebrated personalities, civil and human rights leaders, educators, and thought leaders who are critically acclaimed for their perspectives on issues of race, access to opportunity, equity, and social justice. Our goal is to enlighten participants on the historic struggle for civil rights and human rights and to inspire personal social action to combat today's injustices. Entrepreneurship has been the cornerstone of the Black community's resilience, economic empowerment, and activism here in the United States. It's not just a story of business, it's a story of resilience, creativity, and community. It's a story of building when there was nothing, of thriving despite barriers, and planting seeds that have sustained families, neighborhoods, and movements for generations. Tonight's conversation is about honoring that powerful legacy, and it's only possible thanks to the support of partners like Wells Fargo. So before we continue, I'd like to just take a quick moment to recognize and thank our friends from Wells Fargo who are with us here this evening. Let's give them a round of applause. We're joined by a powerful group of panelists this evening who each bring a unique lens to this discussion, from business ownership and advocacy to investing and legacy building. Together, we'll explore the past, present, and future of Black entrepreneurship and what it looks like to build power, equity, and lasting change through enterprise. Now, I would like to invite to the stage the president of the National Civil Rights Museum, Dr. Russ Wigginton.
Thank you, Arlinda, and good evening, and thank you for being here. It is indeed part of our responsibility to tell the story and tell all aspects of the story of this country and the significance of African Americans, others who've contributed to and made this country what it is. Sometimes that's a struggle, but we're always connected to and part of the struggle in making sure that we tell the story through facts and data and experience. We have three pillars here at the National Civil Rights Museum that we want to lift up always. Those are education, health equity, and economic empowerment. All of those are part of our collective story. And so the opportunity for that to be lifted up tonight is indeed an important one and an exciting one. I would like to bring up Mr. Andre Marve from Wells Fargo, who we appreciate their support so much, to share a few words. Andre.
First off, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for being here. Well, like you said, my name is Andre Marve II. I'm a financial advisor from Wells Fargo Advisors, and it's always a pleasure to be a part and to address you all this evening. Small business pumps life into the neighborhoods, creating vibrant places to live, work, and raise families. and they are crucial to sustaining millions of local jobs. According to the U.S. Small Business Administration, approximately 50% of all Americans are employed by a small business, and 99% of all businesses in America are labeled as small businesses. The U.S. economy is powered by small business, and Wells Fargo is committed to helping them succeed financially and to help them improve their communities. We proudly serve more than 3 million small businesses, their customers, and we want to be the bank for everyone. We work diligently at earning their trust by putting their needs in front of our own, innovating their experience through digital enhancements, and involving our support to deepen relationships. While economic challenges continue while economic challenges continue for small businesses, Wells Fargo is focused on strengthening the small business sector for the long term. Our goal is to help as many small businesses as we can. Wells Fargo has had a long history of supporting the Memphis community in many areas, including small business funding and financial education. Our goal is to be the bank of choice for all small businesses because they are critical to the health and prosperity of local communities and the national economy as well. We look forward to continuing our commitment to Memphis, all of its surrounding communities, and small businesses. So for tonight, I want to thank you all for showing up tonight, and thank you for allowing me to address you this afternoon. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started with really the meat and potatoes of this evening, the panel discussion. So I would like to go ahead and invite our full panel and moderator up to the stage at this moment in time. Let's give them a round of applause. Awesome. So tonight's moderator, Larry Robinson, is a multifaceted leader, entrepreneur, educator, and innovator in the fields of business communications, media, and digital content creation. He is the founder and CEO of Kazukian LLC, a Memphis-based multimedia powerhouse that has earned a national reputation for producing vibrant, culturally rich, and engaging content. Kazukian has grown under Larry's leadership into a network of over 30 podcasts and has become a trusted partner for organizations seeking top-tier production for live, hybrid, and virtual events. In addition to his role at Kazukian, Larry serves as the executive director of Kazukian Media Group, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to increasing the digital communication capabilities of nonprofit organizations, government bodies, and public-private partnerships in the Mid-South region. KMG operates with a dual focus. First, to build the technical and artistic capabilities of the region's nonprofit organizations, ensuring they can effectively communicate their missions and engage with their communities. Secondly, to provide on-the-job training and mentorship to the next generation of content creators. Larry's career is defined by his unwavering commitment to empowering others, whether through his business ventures, educational efforts, or community initiatives. His leadership at Kazukian and KMG reflect his dedication to creating opportunities for underrepresented voices and fostering a new generation of content creators and entrepreneurs. You guys give me a round of applause as we introduce tonight's moderator, Mr. Larry Robinson.
Thank you so much, Arlinda. And thank you to the National Civil Rights Museum for continuing to elevate conversations that matter. Tonight isn't just about entrepreneurship. It's about empowerment. It's about freedom. It's about the power of Black businesses to not only make profit, but to make change. From Reconstruction to Renaissance to right now. Black entrepreneurs have been doing more than just hustling. We've been healing, building, and breaking barriers. And tonight, we're here to honor that legacy and lift up voices of a new generation who are writing the next chapter. And listen, this ain't a panel where you sit back and nod politely. This is a community conversation. Laugh if you hear something funny. Shout amen if you hear the truth. And lean in if you feel moved. Because our panelists didn't come here to play. They came to pour. So let me introduce tonight powerhouse lineup. All right, here we go. We got this bad sister in all pink sitting right here next to me. Woo, if y'all knew how bad she was, or she is. Tech boss, civic visionary, economic empowerment architect, CEO of Otika Technologies, a pioneer for women and minority entrepreneurs. Alandis built the Memphis Office of Resource and Enterprise before tech diversity was trending. Y'all show some love for the great Alandis Dobbins. Now I'm gonna go to the lady sitting next to her to the left. She inherited a legacy and didn't just preserve it, she elevated it. Managing partner of historic Four-Way Restaurant, public health advocate, and all-around South Memphis game changer. Legacy has a new face and a new fire. Please welcome Miss Joelle Thompson. Now, this brother didn't just wake up and smell the coffee. He remixed it. Founder of Coffee Black and the Anti-Gentrification Coffee Club. He's on a mission to make coffee black again. Culturally, economically, and globally. He brews, he speaks, he rhymes, and he builds. Let's welcome Bartholomew Jones. All right, we're going to jump on in this. So let's take it back to where it all started. Because black entrepreneurship isn't new. It's older than the building we're in. We built businesses when we couldn't even bank. So I want to ask to Alandis, what lessons can we learn from how early black entrepreneurs built economic independence, even in the face of Jim Crow and systemic racism? But I want to pause for a second. This sister came from entrepreneurship. Her father, George Dobbins, was a brother who really pioneered in a time when things weren't so cool. And then layer on top of that, he was one of Memphis's first black Republicans. So please.
So thank you to the civil
You got a
rights-
mic behind you.
Oh, that's right. But listen, I'm a loud mouth, so cut this on. Testing.
There you go.
Perfect. Thank you to the Civil Rights Museum for this opportunity. You know, I know this is the month of Africa in April, but I'm of the ilk that we celebrate ourselves 365 days for all of our lives.
Right.
And so to be on such hallowed ground for this is an honor for me, an honor to be here. And so thank you for that amazing introduction. You know, that introduction he just gave helps to strengthen me. And so we have to strengthen each other all the time, particularly now with what's going on in our world and in our country and in our community. So thank you for that introduction.
I didn't say enough.
Well, hey, I'll take that too. Being home, starting a business, third generation, both of my children are in the audience with me. And so the legacy will continue. is really nothing short of miraculous. And so I have to say that so that we understand and have a baseline for how beautiful and amazing we are, right? To have gone through slavery, just to come across the oceans and get here and last, let alone get through the torture of rapes and beatings and emotional and mental degradation, and to be here, to have this museum that honors us, the people who run this museum, and then for me to be able to own a company as a Black woman, descendant of some of the greatest people who've ever lived that have gotten me to this point. I'm very thankful and blessed. And so I say we have to strengthen each other. We have to encourage each other. We have to love like we've never loved each other.
Yes, ma'am.
We have to hold
Yes,
on to
ma'am.
each other. And we have to lift each other up. And if we start doing that more and more, it's nothing that we can't accomplish, no matter what's in that White House. So I just have to share that it's the strength in God. Patrice and I grew up together. We've known each other since we were 2. She's my oldest and dearest friend. This is my niecey. And so we grew up at each other's house all the time. We went to church together. We learned the same, come from the same heartbeat. Our parents were pioneers, amazing people. We'll talk more about that. You mentioned my father. Every day I'm thankful that I had the father that I had. Now, let me just step back for a second. When he was a Republican, it was because of entrepreneurship. This is during some different times. So I just got it. My dad's been gone for 19 years.
Yeah.
This is a time when Black people who were in the Republican Party did it because of entrepreneurship.
Right.
And he came out of the fields of Mississippi, but understood he needed to grow a business. It had to have been from God, because it wasn't from, picking cotton in the fields. And so I'm very thankful that he shared that vision, that I was able to pick up that moniker. And he talked about being in technology in the 80s, before there were cell phones and computers. So he was ahead of the game. And I know y'all don't remember that day, but we didn't always have cell phones and computers.
Ain't that the truth?
So thankful for that vision. But what I want to share is that we have to love each other and pull that strength from each other in order for us to continue to step up and do what we need to do.
Joel, I'm coming to you. And Mike, I know that the Four-Way Grill has had a long, long, long history, and one that your grandparents picked up during some real challenging times. I know there's a history there that you want to communicate. So how did the era that your grandfather and grandmother had the restaurant create both barriers and opportunities for Black businesses?
So yes, brief history of the Four-Way. The Four-Way was originally opened in 1946 on the corner of Mississippi and Walker in Memphis, Tennessee. And the original owner was Miss Irene Cleaves and Clint Cleaves. And we remain on that same exact corner, same exact spot. And when we think about 1946, this is, Jim Crow era, post-slavery. That corner in South Memphis is an extension of a long communal legacy that expands well beyond the Four-Way in terms of business and Black entrepreneurship. A lot of people do and don't know about the People's Grocery, but there's a historical marker right across the street from the Four-Way. And the People's Grocery was a grocery founded by Black men in a time where Black people were having to create schools, create churches, create banks and newspapers and all of the different things that they needed to do to sustain a community when they were kept out. And so we fast forward, that was the late 1800s, and you fast forward 50 years later to when the Four-Way was open, that business was one of 4 in that building. So there was also a shoe shop and a barber shop. There was a pool hall, and then there was an upstairs meeting room and a cleaners, and there was a movie theater across the street. And these were all examples of Black entrepreneurship in that community that created like a sense of kind of a corridor of businesses and spaces for people to not only dine and eat, but people met there. I hear stories all the time. People come and tell, first of all, people come and tell me stories about the four-way. Even though I grew up there at 3 years old, my grandparents reopened the four-way. So I've literally been there my entire life, 20 plus years. I feel too young to be able to say stuff like that. But 20 plus years of my life, I've been learning history through the people who experienced it. And there's so many, joyous memories about how the four-way is a meeting place or has been a meeting place. And so when we think about segregation and Jim Crow, and I like to, and it's a big conversation right now on TikTok, actually, about folks saying like, oh, well, let's go back to segregation. People are saying that because even though it was probably the worst time in the world in terms of violence, and when you became an entrepreneur, you created more risk for yourself for white violence, there was so much more sustainability in our community because we were connected, because we were kept out as a entirety, that we stayed together. Right. And so the toss-up of being in a time where we were disconnected from what American society would tell us what we need to be successful, we created so much opportunity for ourselves. And time again, we've seen it, whether it's People's Grocery, whether it's Tulsa, Oklahoma, whether it's, we can go down the list, Lake Lanier in Georgia. Down the list, time and time again, Black communities have been stripped due to the hands of white violence. And so being a part of something that has been around since 1946, I always hold that very dearly to my heart because that's almost 80 years of not only a family legacy, but a communal legacy to what the four-way or entrepreneurship or business means, not only to Memphis, but to South Memphis. Because my grandfather worked at Universal Life Insurance, another entrepreneurship-based type of business that was created by Black people, and it was the largest life insurance company in the entire country. And I said all that to say that you can go from Walker in Mississippi, really South Parkway in Mississippi, all the way down into Mississippi turns, goes down to Danny Thomas, and see how many, just if you go back in the history books, look at how many Black-owned businesses were there and used to be there. And that community was fruitful and thriving. And there are a lot of ways that we still are, but there are a lot of ways that we are missing that because of now we've integrated into a system that continues to keep us out. But I would like to say that to the answer of how did folks navigate it, I think they navigated it through community, through love, through sharing, space, time, money, and energy. Opening up your doors even if you were closed just so Martin Luther King can have a meeting or right. Even just a meal, right. It was that simple for folks back then, and that's something that we sometimes in this day and age seem to lack. And I would like to see how we can keep using places like the four-way to continue that energy or that opportunity for us to come into community with each other.
I got a quick question to throw in there.
I might have a good answer. I might not.
When did you know that the four-way was going to be a place for you to work? Was it before?
When is the first day I ever worked at the four-way? I was 5 years old the first day I ever got a tip. So we can start there. But in terms of learning the power of what the four-way is and right. What it means, honestly, I think it took me going to college and really? Coming back. Okay. I went to Hampton University for 4 years. That's pretty much the only time I spent away from Memphis. But going there to a Black community that is full of elitism in a way, it was a culture shock. But it made me more passionate about my city and where I come from. And I think that's when it kind of clicked with me, as I journeyed through my passion of trying to go through what do I want to do with health and science and all these things. I wanted to be a doctor. I didn't, all that. And my grandparents encouraged me regardless. But honestly, even though the four-way may not be specifically, somebody might not think about public health, but that is my why. Like, once I got to the point of figuring out where I wanted to be and why I was interested in health and changing the health of communities, it all kind of spiraled back to growing up in the four-way and being raised, watching my grandparents run their business.
Right. Cool. Bart, when you talk about reclaiming coffee's African roots, you're reaching way back. How did your cultural history inspire your business?
Yeah, for sure. So My background really starts with hip hop. So, a big part of hip hop is sampling. And when you do the practice of sampling, you're really, now some people say you're time traveling. This is a book called Dilla Time where they talk about the way that Jay Dilla used or remix measures and the way he approached tempo to create interesting remixes on songs. And so, like, what's interesting about Coffee is that in a lot of ways, Coffee is like sampling an old soul record. And I always say that in the same time you're reaching back into the past, you're also contextualizing in the present and also doing an act of Afrofuturism because you're imagining the future. And that's hip hop. But coffee is very similar because coffee was discovered in Africa in 850 BC. And I like to reintroduce coffee to us. Like we think about coffee as
Wait a minute, say that loud for the people in the back.
yeah, coffee was
People in the
discovered
back.
in Africa originally in 850 BC. And we're talking about the species of Arabica. There are 119 other species of the Caffea genus that are indigenous to the African continent as well, like Conifera or Stenophila or Eugenoides. But we're all familiar with Arabica, right? And so people think about coffee almost as bad for you, like it's almost like a drug, right? It's bad for you. You kind of associate it with cigarettes, so on and so forth. But coffee was not thought of in that way by its original stewards. I like to reframe it not as something that's unhealthy or a stimulant or a drug. It's traditional African medicine, right? That's really what it is, as it was considered by the indigenous people who discovered it. One of the oldest communities is the Oromo people in the southern region of Ethiopia, and they've been stewarding coffee for about 2,000 years, and their belief is that coffee is not, I'll tell this story. First time I went to Africa in 2021, I grew up on my grandma's farm, and they always tell you coffee is a bean. So, I used to hold peas with my grandma in Alabama, so I'm expecting to go see a whole bunch of legumes in a pod on the ground. And I get there and I see a whole bunch of seeds in a fruit on a tree, and I was very confused because I was like, okay, where the beans at, right? I'm looking at a whole bunch of cherries, where the beans at? And they're like, it's actually a seed of a traditional African fruit. And they believe that this seed is actually special in God's creation. So they don't believe that it was grown just as any other plant, that it was actually a special plant grown from God's tears after the first man disobeyed him. My wife always asks, she says, this is my wife, by the way, shout out Renata Henderson, roaster of Coffee Black. She says, I wonder if the fruit that Adam and Eve ate in the garden was a coffee cherry. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. But they believe that the coffee plant is special, it's unique, and it was a gift given to man because of God's sadness about his disobedience. It grew to establish peace. And so they established a blessing whenever they serve coffee. That blessing is Bunaf Nagea Hindabina. It means, may your house lack no coffee nor peace in Afan Oromo. But my favorite translation is, wherever there is coffee, there must also be peace. And that blew my mind the first time I heard it, in a coffee plantation in Ethiopia on the side of a mountain, because I'd never heard that story about coffee before. Coffee's a $460 billion industry. Black folks get less than 1% of that globally because, our slave labor grew it into this industry globally alongside indigenous people. But we don't receive that money. And I was like, I wonder if, to be honest, a lot of black folks I would talk to growing up in my generation would be like, oh, I don't drink coffee because my grandma told me coffee makes you black. And I love that. I want to be, but a lot of folks, they was like, okay, let me steer away from it. But I was like, I wonder if we knew that history, if more people would engage in that industry. And so, like, that story of coffee's blessing inspired me to, like, okay, if we can connect to our past and to our history, it actually gives us not just elevation or inspiration for our spirits, but it gives us power in the present to act and choose differently in the way we build businesses, right? Okay, so there's Dr. Clyde Anderson wrote a book called Powernomics. Is anybody familiar with Dr. Clyde Anderson? Yeah. So, and in that book, he said that African Americans should build businesses and industries where we either produce or consume predominantly, right? And so when you think about coffee, the research says African Americans are the least consuming ethnic group 10 years ago. Surprise, the research came out last year. It says we're the fastest growing ethnicity. So I feel like we had something to do with that. I'll take a little credit for it. But most of the coffee, all of the indigenous species of coffee exists in the African continent indigenously. So I'm like, okay, if we are able to create business partnerships, that's power, right now, right? I don't have to wait on nobody to make a different decision in the government. I don't have to ask for no permission. I just need to have business partners who actually want to do business with me and see me as a human being, right? And not as a nuisance or a black box to post. Like, the people who partner with us engage with us because they believe we're brothers and sisters. And so for me, that history and that legacy of sampling and hip hop made me value the past in a way where I can see the power, but I can also contextualize it. So we source our coffee from the Guji zone of Ethiopia, which is where we learned that blessing. But we call our coffee Guji Main, right? And that's because it's not just in the past, it's present now. And in kind of remixing both of those spaces, it also gives you the opportunity to imagine, well, what will happen in the future if history had went differently. So kind of the thesis statement behind our product development is, well, what if coffee had always been black? What if it was never stolen in 1616? What kind of brands would exist? What kind of ideas? What would the clothes that they wear look like? What would the collaborations be like? And that inspiration leads us to like dream in a kind of Afrofuturistic manner to create new products that happen to do exceptionally well in the market. And so like valuing your history, your root, and your past, honoring your root actually helps you produce better fruit in the future. Ooh. And you know what I'm saying? And I think that for a city like Memphis, oftentimes, especially growing up, man, my uncle used to come down here all the time. His Muga Ajanaku. Anybody know any Ajanakus? So yeah, my uncle, I remember he used to set up here all the time. And I just didn't get it as a kid. Like, I saw the dashikis, I saw the beads. I thought it was cool. He'd give me black comic books. I'm like, shout out Unc with the Static Shock comic books. But I didn't understand the connection because it felt like something that was in the past, right? It felt like something that was gone. But when I went for myself and we began to dream not just of what a connection to our root would look like, but how could we create new fruit with that connection, I got it. And I understood what he was doing in his time, and I realized it's our responsibility to do it in ours also. We just happen to use coffee instead of a djembe. You know what I'm saying?
Cool. All right, all right. All right, so we all know black businesses do more than just make money. They make meaning. They employ our youth, mentor our future, and rebuild our blocks. Joel, you've been feeding Memphis in more ways than one. What role does the restaurant play in community empowerment?
I would say definitely you could start with its history and being a meeting place. First and foremost, we still have our upstairs, people call it the upper room, but space for folks to organize. That was something of like a era that the Four-Way went through or, you know, was a part of. And I think today, this is more of my mom's, I think, an aligned mission of our family, but my mom's mission to always be blessed to be a blessing, and to bless others. So using our power to be able to be a fruit or a light to somebody else. We were blessed to be able to buy the building next door to us, which was also historically black-owned business. It was a pharmacy at one point and then a bookstore. And now it houses a nonprofit called Hope Activated, dedicated to youth mentorship and empowerment. And so my mom and I actually helped volunteer with them, but they leased their building from us in that partnership. This is a way that we partner with community in supporting their nonprofit. I'm on a board for a charter school, Memphis Delta Prep, in South Memphis, and we also utilize our power to help kind of bring the community around that and support in ways through food. But beyond the ways that we partner with, I guess the biggest partnership in addition to that is my job. So I actually have two jobs. The Four-Way is how a lot of people know me. But I do have my master's in public health, and so I use my public health skills, and I work with Center for Transforming Communities. And so I'm a community connector. And so I also utilize the Four-Way as a means to do my own organizing around my food justice work in both of my jobs. And I think now, today, I'm seeing a new resurgence of the space being able to be used for organizing in this era and what it looks like to be in the 2020s, organizing in a very racially charged time, a time where we're trying to figure out how we get back to community, how we reimagine and honor the past for the future. And I think that is kind of the vision or what we envision about the Four-Ways expansion and growth. We want to stay where we are. A lot of people are like, oh, y'all not going to open another restaurant? We need one of these. That's a lot of work, y'all. But what we can do is utilize our power in that space for that corner and see how we can utilize that corner of Mississippi and Walker and expand that neighborhood. Because what I find oftentimes, a lot of people leave South Memphis and they might come back and work in South Memphis, but they don't stay and continue to pour in. There's a narrative that, oh, South Memphis gets all the investment because we have Stacks, we have Soulsville, we have Lemoyne, we have a lot of notoriety. But that does not necessarily mean the funds and the energy and the investment is actually going to the people that are doing the work.
Right.
And it's a challenge as a small business to also hold such a heavy position as a bearer of that, that kind of identity to the community. Being a cornerstone, it's a challenge because we're small, it's a family-owned business. Right. And I think, I don't want to get off the topic of the question, but I would say that we look at building in a way of partnership. And even with my brother, he's not in Memphis, but that's my only sibling. We inherited together. I ain't doing this by myself. I tell him all the time. But I run, ideas past him all the time. I have all these big dreams of ways that what the four-way will look like in the future, because this is a legacy that we want to continue. Right. And so I think this is my tidbit. Y'all keep supporting us so that we can grow in the way that we want to. We have ventures that we want to take on, spaces that we want to expand. We want to get a bigger parking lot so we can house all of y'all. So there are things that we want to do, and I think it's just a matter of partnership and supporting each other, and the ways that we give back, the ways that people are able to pour into us, we're able to pour into others, and that's through hiring, partnerships with Lemoyne, teenagers. So many people have come through the four-way, and even some of my own friends still tell me to this day, I'm so thankful for what y'all were able to do for me. Even if they weren't somebody that was more disadvantaged than the other, right. What we were able to pour in and they were able to receive from us goes beyond just an experience, but teaches you lessons that I think that's something that I watch my mom do. I'm like, you are not their mom, but she teaches them very great lessons. My dad is a very great mentor to a lot of the young men we have in there. And I think that family orientation, that community orientation spirit that we have, about caring for one another, and in some ways being up in your business in the right way, that's what's helping us, carry ourselves forward and really help grow the people that work with us. And so it's not about just working at the four-way forever. We encourage people that's in transition phases. You never know, you'll come in there and get a job, a better job, a salary job, something that you were looking for. And so I think that's the type of vibe that we like to continue to, push and narrative that we like to hold is, our mission.
Right.
And it grows our business because whenever we want to win a customer, we go get some plates and take it over to them.
Oh, all right. Bart.
Fast food in Memphis, hashtag, whatever.
All right, Bart. We know Coffee Black, the mission of Coffee Black is bigger than just coffee. Yep. Tell us about the community brew-ups, the Barista Exchange program, and how you are pouring back into the block.
Yeah, man. So we have a location called the Anti-Gentrification Coffee Club. It started off as a joke in my neighborhood. The business started really during the pandemic. Our neighborhood community development org was like, "Yo, y'all gotta start an actual shop," because we were shipping coffee, e-commerce, wholesale, and we were busy. Like the business started.
So, bro, hold on. You holding that mic like you might have something to spit or something.
Man, I always got something to spit.
Okay, well, we gonna finish up with you. Because you holding it like,
I can't help it, bro.
Bars,
yeah,
bro.
Yeah,
I'm checking you out.
Nah, I appreciate that. But we was actually, that is actually interesting, because when we started the coffee stuff, it was really merch for my music. So I was just into coffee, and the value proposition. Yo, I'm a young black man trying to help my community. Buy my mixtape. I might sell 1 out of 100 mixtapes. Yo, I'm a young black man trying to help my community purchase my single origin, naturally processed Ethiopian Gucci. I'm getting, 20 out of 100. I mean, the percentages are up as far as the cold calls. So I was like, it's a better movement. But yeah, we started the Anti-Gentrification Coffee Club as a joke. Essentially, it was like, okay, I know there are kind of 4 horsemen of the gentrification apocalypse. You got Whole Foods, craft breweries, small ladies walking even smaller dogs, and then coffee shops. And so I was like, the city's putting I live in Mitchell Heights, so the city is putting $7 million right there on national and summer. If you've read the Memphis 3.0 plan, they got the whole redevelopment, scenario for the city. And if we're wise, we see that there's going to be a flood of resources. We need to establish businesses ahead of time. Because what happens oftentimes is like the city makes these plans and has these meetings, and as a community, we complain after the fact. Right? The businesses have already been built. The redevelopment has already happened. We see it happening, and now I'm upset because a bunch of other people were brought in to develop my community. But if I'm informed and aware, education is elevation. Okay, let me just put it here first. I know y'all putting $7 million. If money's like water, we all got to swim. I'm not trying to drown, so I'm putting it here when I know that my community is going to need jobs, when I know we're going to need to be able to have equity and build power and own real estate. Let's buy it now. Let's build it in our own communities first, because I think oftentimes we're trained, especially as young Black folks, to see success as achieving accolades in someone else's space. Right? And like, we're not really necessarily told to come back and reinvest. We talk about white flight, but we don't always talk about Black flight. Right? Right, and we don't, they say the cream rises to the top, right? You know how I like my coffee, so I feel like a lot of times we have to look at what can we do and how can we value our own spaces. And that was the idea behind the Anti-Gentrification Coffee Club. If coffee's a $460 billion industry, it's the most drank liquid on the planet after water, it's the most traded good from third world countries after oil, and we only getting 1%. Some people say, well, there's no hope. I said, I got 99% of opportunity right in front of me to go build power and to create jobs and create exposure. That's an open market to me, so I'm like, let's go get it. So that's kind of the approach that we took to it in building the space. And so one of the programs we would do was these community brew ups. So I would bring out DJs, I would get maybe a caterer, and we'd go to these spaces around the city and create a space for curiosity. So the DJ would spin, we start with a cipher, everybody would spit. I might do something like, coffee stay black, just like me. Don't need no sugar, don't need no cream. You know what I'm saying? Just something slight.
There you go, buddy.
Right, and then from there, we would invite people to express themselves, and then I would bring them into the coffee cipher. And so my wife and I were both educators for 10 years. As a teacher, they teach you the I do, the we do, and the you do. And so that's how I approached the coffee. Like, I would walk through how to do a pour over. We would use a lot of the strategies that I would use in my master's degree program when we would look at like critical pedagogy. So we do what's called a co-generative dialogue, where we would engage the community to be curious about the items in front of them, and I wouldn't give them the meaning. They would make the meaning together, and then we would explore that. Here's how I do it, here's how we can do it, how would you do it? And there were no wrong answers. But after a while doing this in other people's coffee shops, I started looking at the revenue. I'm like, all right, let's do it in our own spot. And so that's the brew up, and that's evolved into monthly ciphers, which at this point are on pause until we open our new location. And I'll talk more about that at another point. But we also did the world's first Pan-African barista exchange program. So in the coffee industry, there are these things called origin trips. And the way that an origin trip normally works is you have a coffee nerd who I identify as such, so shout out to coffee nerds, but they generally don't look like me. And they'll go to a country where generally everybody does look like me. And they'll basically go on like a little safari where they learn about coffee and its history, and oh my gosh, there's so much poverty here. And, it turns into, a field trip of sorts. And then they come back and say, man, I've learned so much about these farmers. They take some pictures and post them online. And then they say, buy my coffee because I'm helping this person. Oftentimes, the people who live in those countries never get to do the visit back, though. Right? And the pictures that are taken and posted oftentimes never get approved by the people. A lot of times it'd be folks' kids who didn't even know you was handling their kids. And I got 3 sons right here. I remember somebody came up and knocked on my door like, can we take your kids to vacation? Actually, they didn't knock on my door. They just tried to grab my kids out the yard and walk to a vacation Bible school. And I love vacation Bible school. You know what I'm saying? I got a cross tatted on my arm. I love Jesus. That's why I spend so much time in Ethiopia. That's a whole other conversation. But I'm like, yo, can I go to your neighborhood and grab your kids and take them somewhere without your permission? Like, you're not going to knock on the door anyway. So this is happening in the coffee industry where people are just going to these communities and they're talking about people. And I just always felt that was weird. Like the first time I went to Ethiopia, I didn't go to tell nobody how to do nothing. I went to learn. I'm like, y'all had this plan for 2,000 years. Teach me about what I need to be doing differently. Teach me about how you got, my grandma say God don't make no junk. It's on the shirt, right? And I'll talk about the shirt later. But like that belief is everything God does is on purpose. It's intentional. There are no accidents. And so if God gave y'all this plant, it must have been for a reason. So you teach me what you've learned with this plant, and we can collaborate together on how to get bigger market share. So the Pan-African Barista Exchange Program was something we created with Vanderbilt, and I actually can't make that announcement yet, but we're gonna do some more stuff with Vanderbilt. But the purpose of it was to create a family reunion of sorts, where we can bring people from across the diaspora to have a conversation about coffee, not just as an economic tool, but as a cultural tool, as a tool for peace. And so we were able to we had 27 people from around the African diaspora apply. We took 10 black baristas from America to Ethiopia to meet a group of elders, coffee elders called Abagadas and Adasinkes, who have stewarded this system for 2,000 years. We learned from them. We saw the world's first coffee ceremony called Bunakala. And then we went to Rwanda to learn about healing from colonial trauma as well. And then, after we did that, we brought them over here to visit us because my mama raised me right. So you're not finna host me in your house and feed me your food and teach me all these things, and I'm not gonna give you the opportunity back. And I'm glad we did that before the current headship that we in, because the visas was a little bit easier. They were still hard to get, but you know, we were able to host 4 African and 1 Afro-Latino barista and farmer from the diaspora here in Memphis, and we'll actually be bringing 2 of them back to Memphis on the 29th. So if you want to come and learn more, we're gonna be hosting a happy hour in our new cafe and roastery, so you can come and meet them and learn more about what we're doing.
Absolutely. Now, you do have a documentary of your
Yes.
trip. Can you shout that out?
For sure, it's called essentially called Coffee Makes You Black, and so that's the name of So that's the name of the documentary. It's the second one we've created. The first one we won Best Film in Coffee for that. It's called Coffee Black to Africa. The second one's called Coffee Makes You Black, and so we're actually also going to be hosting a private digital screening of that next Thursday. So feel free to contact me or hit the link in my bio to RSVP. Talk about more ways we can partner. But that covers the first trip. It documents it, and then I have a lot more documentaries that I want to make. But we're in the middle of a capital raise, and I got to stop making films and get back to building wholesale contracts. So, yeah.
All right. Alandis, you launched Otika. Not just to build a tech company. You built an opportunity. Can you speak about the ripple effect that black businesses can have on employment and mentorship?
Yeah, so part of what I was taught in my home was our pathway to freedom was through owning our own. And, unfortunately, with all that has happened, desegregation and so on and so forth, that lesson is not taught as much as it needs to be taught. And so I want to claim today that we have to, particularly now, start thinking about owning our own in every aspect of every piece of that. And so with that understanding, I thought, well, if other people can do whatever they're doing with entrepreneurship, certainly we can as well. And so our business model is one where we make sure that we create opportunity for people who work for us. We treat our employees like family in the positive way. We give back to our community consistently through training courses. I never once paid anybody less than $15, even on day one, because I respect the people that work there and what they bring to our company. And so I have never missed a payroll, very proud of that from day one. And if you own a business, you know exactly what I mean. And I've never paid anybody less than $15 an hour. That's not respectable to anybody that works there. And so a lot of the African-American men that work at our company worked at other companies, came over because they didn't have the ability to climb the ladder at other companies. They have that ability at Otika Technologies. And so with all that's going on right now, if we had 5,000 Black multi-million-dollar companies in Memphis, Tennessee, you would never have to worry about funding coming from the federal space or not. And so this vision that we have to start adopting is flipping how we look at things. We must own our own companies. We must take care of our own communities. Nobody else is going to do it. They're going to knock on the door and take your children somewhere, right? We have to make sure that we support each other. Memphis is not well known for that in our African American community. Most of the business that we earn, we work very, very hard. Is not coming from us supporting each other, right? And so we have to change that. There's a reason for it. It's not necessarily our fault, but I have a very difficult time getting business from African American leadership. A very difficult time.
Say that again for the people that's way in the back.
And so we have to change that. In spite of that, I have 80 employees, right? We handle our school system. We're doing work at the Liberty Bowl now. We did the convention center when it was redone. We have lots of private. But with the changing in the laws that are happening right now, the reason that you heard me mention a lot of government is because you have to use us. By choice, if we are to go get the business, all of a sudden I'm getting a lot of no's, right? Because the laws are changing. So we have to get to the nitty-gritty. Black power is a bad word when you start saying that, you angry Black woman, all these things. Those things are taught to us, but we must change our own minds and learn to support each other. We must demand that of our leadership when they are elected here in our community. We must demand it. And those who don't know how to do that, we must not vote them in. Our community, even though we're African American predominant community, 67%, we are less than 1% of the business receipts.
Talk about it.
I'm gonna let that settle for a second. We are less than 1% of the business receipts.
Yeah.
We have the answers to solve our own problems ourselves. If we grow our businesses and we take care of our young Black men, they're not gonna be out there shooting each other and shooting us. We will take care of our community. Yeah. We can't even do that now. Yeah. We don't have the money to do that. So clearly we have to support each other. That's our answer. We are our answer. We are our answer. And until we start demanding more from our leaders and making sure that we grow 5,000 multi-million-dollar Black businesses in our community, money's not dirty. Money's not dirty. Money is how we're able to make sure we can eat. Make sure that our young Black men have an education and our young Black women have an education. You have to have money to do that, to build the institutions, the Lemoynes. Right now, Lemoyne, the endowment is not where it needs to be. The endowment for this music, we have to build businesses. I don't know any other way. If you're working for someone else, right, you're only gonna make what they allow. But if you're working for yourself, you're able to work as hard as you're able to work, and the sky is the limit. And so we have to demand that we have leaders that understand that principle and not bend their backs and give in so much. Because I think that, you know, part of the problem of us not being, when I was in college, when we were in college, people wanted to come home with us to Memphis. Memphis was ahead of Atlanta back then. Memphis was ahead of New Orleans. Memphis was ahead of cities that are now, Nashville, oh my goodness, right? And so they made these changes in a 30-year period. But when people come to visit me that used to come home with me in college, they say how Memphis is pretty much the same as it was. I read a report last week that we are the top in losing people in the country.
Yep.
We have to change that. We have to support each other. We have to make this a place that is supportive of Black people. That Black people, let's bring all the Black people to Memphis who want to be entrepreneurship. Let's make that something that our city can do. That's how we can grow this place. That's how we can make it desirable. That's how we can make sure we take care of each other. That you all can have that money that you need to buy the whole darn block, that whole community, and develop it, right? So I expect tomorrow the line out of four-way is gonna be like down the street, right? So they can buy that block up.
Absolutely.
Because she trains and they work hard, right? We train, we make sure, the pastor that just passed, one of our young and rising stars, was sent to Otika from Pastor Ricky. that young man was going down a path he didn't need to go down. Now he's one of our leaders. He drives a truck. He has children. He teaches football in the evenings, cheerleading. He's on a different path than he was on. And we support that at Otika Technologies. And if we had more businesses, we'd be supporting that as well. So I know people think one way, but if I don't win a contract, I can't be in Whitehaven and clean up the street I'm on. If I don't win that contract, I'm not able to go and give toys to the young people at Memphis Prep that we've adopted. How many families did they say we were able to provide Christmas for? 125 black families in the inner city. I can't do that if I don't get the contract. I don't know of anybody else that's doing that, but if we can grow our businesses, we will do that. We will continue to do that. I'm in Whitehaven on purpose. I wanted to be in Whitehaven. We've been broken into 8 times. 8 times. But I'm gonna stay right there. We just had to get a fence and put some locks on the doors differently. But we're gonna stay right there. And maybe the next time we catch them on film, I go to jail, get them, they come and get a job.
Yeah. All right.
And I won't pay them less than what they're worth, right? That's what we offer to the community. That's what we do. That's how we are able to make the change. And we encourage, we have other businesses that have grown because of us, and we will continue to help grow those businesses, but it's the heart of the leader. It's the heart of the family that runs that business. It's how they want to make sure that Memphis is the best that it can be.
Fantastic. I got a quick poll. Just raise your hands. How many people in the audience first job was at a black business? That's legacy in real time, right there. Wow. So now we got to keep it real. The grind is glorious, but the gates and the gatekeepers are real. Access to capital, resources, and networks are still not equitable. Alandis, what are the biggest barriers you faced, and how'd you knock them down?
Persistence is the biggest barriers. Really were people not believing that I could get the job done. I mean, and so they were not taking me seriously, but I kept my head down. I kept knocking on doors. I tell the story when I won the contract for the school system, I turned the bid in the first time. They gave me a 50 on the score. And I guarantee you know, being the child of George and Jean, the teacher of 50 years, that proposal I turned in did not deserve a 50. I'm just gonna tell you. And believe it or not, I turned that same proposal in the second time and lost. Third time I won. Same proposal, right? That got the 50 the first time. But that third time around, when I started Otika, I mean, I didn't get any sleep. Rossi will tell you whenever we would spend time, she's like, Mama, and we'd go on a trip together, and we would share the room. She's like, Mama, I gotta go sleep. You're gonna have to stop talking about Otika right now. So, persistence and hard work. But I also have to give a shout out to Commissioner Teresa Jones. She's passed now. But I saw some black leaders stand up and fight for a black company. And as you mentioned, my father was a serial entrepreneur. First business started in the 70s. And I had never seen black leadership in Memphis stand up for a black company. I had never seen it. And I'd been around all the politics and, trying to win the contracts. And they gave me a shot. You have to, and I guess the backstory I got to share, lots of prayer, lots and lots of prayer. But also, if you know me, I had to go, children in the room, so I watch my language. I had to go light some people up behind the scenes. I mean, I made a lot of phone calls and a lot of visits and like, what are you doing here? you have an African-American woman on who's a graduate of this school system, I gotta have a shot. And so you do have to do some advocacy for yourself. There's a song they sang at my grandmother's funeral. You gotta sometimes encourage yourself. And so, you know, when I had $0, I used all my money, was driving my mama's PT Cruiser, all of that. I had to encourage myself. So you have to advocate. Again, I, highly recommend that you talk to your representatives and let them know. And, sometimes I had to let them know, look, either y'all gonna give me a fair shot or I'm gonna start screaming from the mountaintops about how you not giving me a fair shot. I don't think you want me to turn my energy to that. But I had nothing to lose. I mean, I didn't have it then. What was going, So that, and then as my brother-in-law said, my brother, Jerry, they didn't take me seriously. So when I started winning, I just kept my head down, never said anything to anybody. Then all of a sudden, people started taking me seriously. They went to my distributor, some of my competition. I'm the only black company that is at this level doing what we do. They went to my distributor and said, stop doing business with her, or we're going to stop doing business with you. 3 of them went to my distributor and told them. Luckily, the distributor had known my dad and said, I'm sorry, y'all can stop doing business with me if you want, but this young woman deserves a shot. And this was a white man that did this. Let me just share. So you never know from whence your help is going to come in life. You just don't know. But because he knew my dad, and they stopped doing business with them for a year, so they lost a lot of money by standing up for me. And I didn't know about this at the time, but if they had stopped and cut my distributor, I would have been out of business. There's no way I could have survived. So this is real big boy, big girl games. This is not for the faint of heart. And people don't play because this is power. If all of us in this room were worth $50 million, what couldn't we do? What couldn't we do? We could turn Memphis around. We could turn the country around. If each of us individually. So understand what happens when you own your own. Understand what happens when you can make sure you take care of your community. Understand what that means, right? And so, this thing with our school system now, the first 2 things I understand was on that bill was that they wanted to make sure they looked at the contracts and they looked at the real estate. They didn't say nothing about the academics or the mental wellness of our children. They said contracts and real estate. So what does that mean? You want to take over our schools so you can look at the contracts, $2 billion budget at the school system, and the real estate. And those that have taken over the schools already, when the state takes over, those schools are failing more horribly than before. So what's really going on here? We can't be duped anymore. We got to take the wool from over our eyes in our community. Because if the state takes over, this is my stance and me speaking on my own, and our children have less of a shot at an education than they do right now, what is Memphis going to look like in 10 years, in 5 years, in 2 years? What it look like now? What is going to get worse? So we've got to take that wool from over our eyes and really get engaged. I get engaged as much as I can in trying to run the business. So I encourage each of us in this room to continue to get engaged. So the ripple effects are that you can make sure that you have young people who are going one path, take them on another path. That means that maybe you've saved a life or 2, right? And I send everybody through training they wouldn't have gotten had they not been. Everybody gets the training at Otika Technologies. When some of our people were at other companies, they didn't get recommended for the training. Other people got training, they didn't. Everybody at our company goes through the training so that you can grow in your life, right? It's the nurturing effect that we have. You spend more time at work than you spend at home when you're on a 40-hour work week. So we make sure it's a nurturing effect. And you can give back. Giving back is a real big pillar of what we do at Otika. We're giving back on a consistent basis. And so I just want to encourage each of us to look that money is not dirty. Find a way, find your passion, open the business, do what you got to do. I remember hearing Floyd Tyler, who owned Preserver Partners. I heard him speak once, and he said we was really frugal with his money for 10 years. And when he opened his doors, he had enough money to stay open for 2 years before, in case he didn't get a client, he was able to pay his salaries, pay his rent, keep the doors open, cover all his bills for 2 years. So that type of thinking is something, that we can do just with a lot of diligence and structure. So opening our own and saving our own communities, saving ourselves and saving our own communities.
So listen, we're going to have a Q&A in a second, so I want y'all to get your questions together. And we got a few minutes, so we're going to speed it up a little bit. Bart, you didn't wait for the banks. You went to the people. How did community investing help you launch the institutions when institutions didn't support you?
Yeah, I mentioned coffee's this almost $500 billion industry. Trying to get into that space competitively with zero experience and a whole lot of passion obviously is extremely difficult. But I'm proud to say, when we launched our business, we were always pretty much owned by the people. When we wanted to go to Africa the first time, actually, let me back up. When we launched our business, I told you we had just finished closing a community art school that my wife and I had opened up in South Memphis, close to where my dad grew up. And we knew we had a passion. We knew we had some sales history based on the merch I sold at shows. The pandemic is impending, and we're like, man, I feel like God is telling me to go forward on this, but babe, I need you to hold me down. And so the first person who invested in my business was my wife. Yeah. Which is why she's the majority owner right now. But yeah, come on. Yeah. But when I wanted to build the business, man, my wife went and got a remote job so I could spend 4 months growing the business. And I'm proud to say within 6 months, we had went from, less than zero in the bank account after the school closed to over 6 figures in revenue. And that was because of one person's community investment. That's because of my wife. And so I'm grateful for that. The second instance I want to talk about is our first time going to Africa. We had just started the Anti-Gentrification Coffee Club. People aren't really going to coffee shops. Again, it's still pandemic time. And I'm telling this story about my research. I'm a big old nerd. And so I love learning. And I'm telling this story to my community, coffee discovered in Africa, blah, blah, blah. And they asked me, one of my neighbors, he's like, so when you going to go? And I looked at him crazy like, bro, what black American done been to Africa? Come on, dog. It's been 400 years. It's a long time. I don't know. I don't know when I'm going to go. But they kept asking me, and the community pushed me to go. And so we put out a GoFundMe. Long story short, within 72 hours, we had raised $32,000 from people all around the country to go and learn about the black history of coffee from the people who discovered it. And so we're grateful for that. That changed our life. And through that, we established the world's first all-black coffee supply chain from Ethiopia to Memphis. And that process led us to start bringing over a lot more coffee, right? Because we're building direct relationships with farmers. And so now we decided the invoices just got a little bit too big for me to pre-sale my way through, trying to bring coffee over. And so we're proud to say this year we're planning to import 40 metric tons of coffee from diaspora communities. And going to be able to change the lives of hundreds of folks around the world who have been kind of locked into these sharecropping coffee systems, which I'm not going to get into right now. But in order to finance that, to build a new roaster, to scale, to distribute the coffee, we had to get capital, right? And of course, my wife had invested already. The community had invested already through the GoFundMe. And so we decided to open up another crowdsourcing plan or campaign. And man, within the first 2 weeks of launching it, we already raised over $100,000 in equity capital from the business and from the community. And at this point, we are almost at $500,000 on our way to 1.2 million.
All right.
Yeah. So we got 2 weeks left to join. It closes at the end of April. If you're interested, all the way from $100, which is the lowest level, up to $100,000 or $200,000, however you want to get in, holla at me. You know what I'm saying?
Cool.
It's called the campaign. What's the campaign called? It's called Honor Your Root. The platform is WeFunder, and it offers equity to the community from $100 to get in all the way up into whatever point you're interested in. We'd love to talk more about it if anybody's interested.
Absolutely. So holla at Bart after the show. All right, Joelle. As a young black woman running a legacy brand, how do you balance tradition, innovation, especially in the face of doubt?
You said, especially in the face of doubt.
Yeah.
I think I would say there's very little doubt that we will succeed, and I don't say that to be cocky, but I mean a lot of times when you have people that may not enjoy their experience at your restaurant or whatever, they be like, "Oh, I'll never be back here. I'm gonna make sure y'all in," and I'm blessed to have been there majority of my life. And so, like I said earlier, I feel you too young to be telling somebody I've been working 20 plus years, but my family's owned a business for 20 plus years. And I'm sorry, babes, your one complaint is not gonna end us. And I think about keeping that energy in that, knowing that God is carrying us through all of this. Like sometimes I don't know how we've gotten this far. Right. I don't know how my granddad did it. Like Analandis' father, my granddad was a serial entrepreneur, and so looking at how I can help shape, like, use innovation in the future is really rooted in both of my jobs. Right. So this is why I threw that little tidbit in there, what I do as a community organizer. But right now I'm leading, organizing a community cookbook. And in that work, it's not just about the recipes that we're collecting, but also about honoring the stories and the roots of South Memphians and how we use resilience and community orientation and community connection and love for the land, for ownership, and for each other to really nurture ourselves through food. South Memphis has a very rich history, and I think much like Bart, I don't look at the future in any way without looking at the past. I cannot go into or innovate the future without using the past because, like Analanda said earlier, we got the blueprint already. We have the skills, we have the tools, we know what it means. It's just a different environment. So how do we shift the environment to shape for us? And so I look at, in the future, ownership, but not ownership just for myself and my brother or whoever in my family, but shared ownership. The power is in sharing that ownership and sharing it together. Because power, a lot of people look at power as a pie, and there's only so many pieces. Power is limitless. And if we look at it as limitless and look at it as a way that we can all share and grow and cultivate so that we can give back, that is how I look at using innovation, is really kind of just getting back together. So it's really not innovative at all. It's really just doing the things that we already have known that people been doing, and sowing those seeds and, planting those roots, or what we take, I say, sowing the seeds of the past to grow, fruits of the future. And that's really where I look at the innovation as being a young black person today in Memphis, and, trying to embark on that. I don't like to call myself an entrepreneur because I never thought that I was, but I guess I technically am. So, doing that, that's where I look at it all.
Wow. You know what's so beautiful about listening to the three of you guys is it becomes obvious, almost like the nose on my face, is that our superpower is resilience. It's resilience against any obstacle. We take challenges and turn them into opportunities. We take no's and make them yeses. And it's just a beautiful thing. So with that, I want to ask, anybody got any questions? And open it up for a Q&A.
I got the first question.
Sure.
So,
Hold on.
oh yeah, that worked too. All right, so my first question would be, Alon, as you were talking about how if everybody had $50 million, how much more powerful would that make us as a community? And you touched on something that I did some research on. And I recently moved here from Atlanta when I got promoted through Wells Fargo. And what I noticed is Atlanta is broken down into pods. So you have a community of Jewish people, you got a community of Indian people, Chinese, Mexican, and so forth. You go into a Jewish community, the Jewish people own all their businesses. They own a grocery store, they need a mechanic, the mechanic is Jewish. You go into the Mexican neighborhoods, same thing. The only community that doesn't own any of their stuff is the African American community. You could go into an African American community, the Chinese man own the Chinese food, Vietnamese people own foot, I call it the foot rubbing, but you know, this little where you go get your toes and all like that, right? So, and then the Jewish people own the building that all of these businesses are in, right? My question would be to the three of you, if we're trying to empower the communities, what, I guess logistically speaking, what is the plan, or what do you guys feel is the best way for us to be able to combat that, to change the behaviors of us? Because that's really what it is. It's changing the behaviors of what we feel is going to be acceptable. So what do you guys feel is the best way to get that community that you guys were saying to build that back again?
I'll just start. I think part of the answer has got to be leadership. You've got to have a group of leaders that allow vision, because without the vision, the people do perish, that allow a different mindset and shift. So that's leadership politically, that's leadership in our churches, that's where we all congregate. Leadership in our schools. You have to go where the masses of the people congregate and start teaching new thoughts, because the thoughts we're eating off of now lead us to death, right? And our community speaks to that. And so that would be, and I know we've got several different visions, but leadership.
I would add alignment in that, because a lot of times I find that we talked about gatekeeping earlier. We gatekeep in our own community. And I think that, like you said, it's not our fault sometimes. A lot of the issues that we find within our community is because we've been indoctrinated into American society that centers capitalism and profit over people. And so when segregation kept us out, integration didn't integrate white people with us. It integrated us into their lives. And so they did that strategically through redlining. They did that strategically through cutting us off from loans or whatever it may be, in ways that dispersed us so that we cannot have a group like a Latino community or an Asian community or a Jewish community. The black dollar doesn't circulate in our community the way that it will in any other community. Not even a full day. Like statistically, I think it's 16 hours.
It's less than 16 hours.
But when we think about People's Grocery in 1880, they had pharmacies, they had newspapers, they had schools, they had grocery stores, they had everything you need. They made sure that they provided everything you need, and that was alignment and knowing that everybody might not have the same skills or talents, but we can fortify and utilize each other's skills to create a holistic system that's going to support all of us. And it's not just about owning and being the only leader, but it's shared leadership. Because I can be a leader here, but how am I partnering and aligning with other leaders in the community? If we don't have the same shared thought process on how we're going to get somewhere, we're not going to get there together, because we can't align together. And so I think alignment in terms of where we are in values, what we really care about, because I think a lot of times we get caught up with what we care about and then take that care and turn it into blame and fault and criticizing versus looking at the opportunity. Like you said, that 1% versus the 99. And when we get caught up in complaining all the time, we lose the sight that we can have the opportunity to truly align as leaders. And as leaders, stop shunning the next generation or the generation before you. Because a lot of times I hear people like Gen X or millennials complain about Gen Z when Gen X and millennials created the system that caused Gen Z to be the way that they are. We're talking about folks that's not educated, but y'all were the educators. You know what I'm saying? So it's about accountability on both sides and alignment. And I say that to bring us all to the table, not to call each other out in it, but in a way to call each other in, so that we are in community with each other, not out of community. And so I think alignment is like the main piece in terms of coinciding with leadership as well, because we do need leaders. How do leaders align with people that are following them? Are they just telling them what to do, or are they allowing the vision to grow and cultivate with new minds and diverse thought? We were talking about it earlier. We made more diverse than we think. Just because we all black does not mean we're not diverse. And so how do we utilize that diversity for our growth and where we go from here?
Amen. Fire. I would say equity as well. So part of our business model is that we're offering equity to the community. So we currently have 540 individuals who are equity partners. As an average investment of $600, and that's beautiful because we can have somebody like A-Ball who just came on and partnered with us with a more sizable investment, or I can have my neighbor Ms. Bernice who lives in our neighborhood, and she been giving me $20 every 2 weeks until she reached that minimum $100. And like, at the end of the day, I think that a lot of times the opportunities presented to Black communities are only symbolic. And I'm not trying to like Clyde Anderson all day, but I think we need real power. And part of that is having real equity in the businesses that come into our community. And that was important for me. I didn't just want to be symbolically Black as a business. I wanted to be legally Black, you know, as well, so that as we grow and people shop with our business, that they know their pockets are growing too. So we offer a revenue share where people are going to get 3% of our revenue until they get a 1.75 return on their investment. That's generational wealth. That's passive income for everyone who's growing and investing with us. And I think that though that's not the only kind of strategy businesses can employ, there are multiple ways to offer the community real equity. And so even down to the point where the street we're on used to be a red line. National Street was a red line. And we can proudly say that even though that was once a place that divided us, we just got the agreement to purchase the building that we've been renovating and investing over $200,000 in. And so now all the people who've been investing with us, assuming I hit my investment goal within the next 2 weeks, are also going to be owners in real estate in our community. And it's even more beautiful because we found out, oh yeah, clap it up. Yeah. It's important because now that the city is investing, that real estate, my house has doubled in my neighborhood in the last 2 years, the value of it. So the community is going to be able to own that. And that's important because when we don't own it, we talk about the soil and seeds and the pain that comes from that, right? The hopelessness that our young men and young women experience because they know at the end of the day, I'm not going to own none of this, right? So you can tell me all day, buck up, do my comma diagrams, make sure I turn my homework in, but all I see is hopelessness in front of me, and you're not giving me a real physical plan for hope. You know what does make me feel like I got some hope? Selling this dope. What does make me feel like some hope is having power over another person with a weapon. And we have to offer alternative forms of power that are rooted in peace, right? So it's important for us. Like, and the last thing I'll say is that even the land we're on, yes, it was a red line, but once we got the purchase agreement, we did the research. This land used to be a 900-acre cotton plantation called the John Pope Plantation. And now we have the opportunity to go in a place where seeds of suffering were sown and sow seeds of peace and harvest a different kind of root where we own it and are not just being owned by others. And I think that that kind of work, the work that y'all are doing, the work that's happening in the communities that we're building in, I think that this is the kinds of things that, one, we need to platform. So share the YouTube video if you're watching right now. If y'all are here, make sure you share this information because the youth need to hear these stories. They need to see that it's possible and not just hear the stories of people who get murdered when they visit our city, but where's the hope and the flourishing that's coming from our city? We got to choose to platform that instead of every time somebody gets broke into, going in the comments and telling them you need to go and move to Nashville. Amen?
Amen. All right. We got room for one more question.
Alandis, thank you for the story that you shared, and thank all of you for the stories that you shared. My name is Terry Ross, and it sounds like you made a lot of sacrifice. And you talked about it a little bit, the PT cruising, and we can tell that was a lot of sacrifice. And what does that mean in terms of Black ownership? And a lot of Black businesses give up in the first 6 months or the first year when they don't make that money. What was that journey like for you? And also, it sounds as if you're doing reentry work. And as Black entrepreneurs, we have to reach back out to those young men that made some decisions in 5 minutes that they're regretting 5 years later. What does that look like in your company?
Yes, it's been a lot of sacrifice, but what's the rapper? He said, I'm going to get rich or die trying. I mean, I don't want to go that extreme, but, I really, in my heart, knew that we needed to show example to young people that there's something other. You can use your mind, you can use your determination, you can use your perseverance to make it. And so many days I fretted. I said I never missed a payroll, but the day before payroll, I didn't know that. I would cry and fret and pray and call everybody, But somehow when I go to that P.O. box, there would always be a check there to make sure that everybody got paid. And, you know, sometimes I didn't get paid, but that's okay. I believed in myself. I banked on myself. I knew that my ancestors got me to this point, so now it's my time to do what they prayed for 200 years ago, when we had to go through this. And so that was my commitment to them. I went to the museum in Montgomery, where the ancestors who had been hung but never knew their names. And it was so touching, because we have to understand, again, I opened this saying that we are miracles. It is the truth. I don't know if we ever just take a moment to sit and think about what our great had to go through. And if you think what they went to, what we're doing is easy. For them to get us to this point, what we're doing is easy. So I wake up every day understanding that my ancestors went through the ultimate sacrifices so that we could be here today. So now it's our turn to do what we need to do for our greats.
Absolutely. So, I'd like to piggyback a little bit on what you just said. A quick story. Me and my wife were driving to Memphis, Tennessee, down Highway 57. And I saw this cotton field. It was cotton as far as I could see. It was 95 degrees out there. Humidity about 90%. And I had to pull over because I had to cut a piece of cotton. And to this day, that cotton is above, right so I can see it. It's right above my desk so I can see it every day. Because I know no matter how bad it gets, it'll never be like that. Because we are the people that our ancestors prayed for. We're the embodiment of that. We're the creation of that. And I want you all to leave here knowing that. So tonight we just didn't have a conversation. We created a mirror that shows the power of legacy, the weight of responsibility, and the joy of building something that outlives you. Thank you to this incredible panel. Thank you to the National Civil Rights Museum. And thank you, the audience, for being here, for bringing the energy and the love and the finger snaps. Now, without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Sister Arlinda, and go from there.
Yeah, let's give our panel and our moderator a round of applause. Was that not amazing? This was such an inspiring conversation, and I just want to thank you all for your honesty, the work that you're doing, how you're pouring into communities, and also just continuing that legacy of Black entrepreneurship is definitely appreciated. With that being said, I'm so thankful to all of you that have joined us, whether you're here physically in the room with us, whether you're joining us virtually, your ability to support our programming, your ability to want to listen in to these stories, and of course, you know, also celebrate the legacy of Black entrepreneurship with us is something that we truly do treasure. And then lastly, as we close, I do want to still give a special thank you to Wells Fargo for their generous support in making this event possible. Your partnership reflects that shared commitment, and we truly do appreciate that. The conversation doesn't have to stop here. I want everyone to continue to mix and mingle, connect with the panel. We have an amazing post-event reception outside, so please spend some time and be in community with us. But for our next Catalyst for Change series event, please make sure to put it on your calendars and join us again, because it will be another amazing conversation. So thank you.
Arlinda, I have a shameless plug real quick.
Oh, we got a shameless plug.
Because you've been dropping the stuff, and I forget to promote my work. So, and there's some people in here that are also helping me create this community cookbook, it's a co-creation project. But if y'all are interested in learning more about what we're doing and hearing more stories about food, land, and love in South Memphis specifically, please follow us we're only on Instagram, but the title of the project is From the Soil to Our Souls, which is a South Memphis food story, and it'll be a cookbook and a documentary project, which is also be filmed by a South Memphis resident, one of my friends that I grew up with. So this is a real passion project for me and my friends, my community, and elders and everybody, and I would love for y'all to support us. On Instagram, it's soil, the number 2, and then souls. So soil to souls, if you are interested in like watching us as we go through this project. I just had to say that, but yeah.
We appreciate that. And I know that there are plenty of other projects that other people need to know about too in this space. So y'all make sure that you stay and connect with each other. But I do want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you to this panel. And we hope you all have an amazing evening and an amazing rest of the week. Thank you all.